There's a guy who likes games, and the best that is played are the ones that you'll see on the top 100. Repeat that part. Top 100 games. Good. Get a little bit freaky. That's right, I'm a little bit freaky.
Hello and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show whose favorite musical is My Fair Lady. No joke. It's just a good musical. My name is Cody, and we are today, of course, taking a look at yet another segment of my top 100 games of all time. Today, we're going to take a look at my numbers 30 through number 21. My number 30 is a game that kind of combines a classic TV series with the board game Settlers of Catan. That is Star Trek Catan from Mayfair Games. Star Trek Catan is just a whole lot of fun. Essentially, it's a game where you are trading for resources, and you're trying to kind of create the most victory points by accomplishing certain tasks. In this case, however, there's a few kind of cosmetic changes. Instead of building roads, you're building kind of starship supply lines. Instead of villages, you're building star bases. And the only real mechanical difference from Settlers of Catan is the fact that you are using these role cards. And with these role cards, essentially you take on the role of Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, Montgomery Scott, etc., etc. And you essentially can do these special abilities twice in the game while you have those role cards. And then you have to return them to grab a different role card. And that adds some real fun variation to the traditional game of Settlers of Catan. So I really enjoy Star Trek Catan? Star Trek Catan. It's just a whole lot of fun. I recommend you check that out. That is my number 30, Star Trek Catan from Mayfair Games. Discriminating Gamers Top 100 Games. Number 29 is another horror-themed board game. If you saw the last list, I had a few. And I gotta tell you, I enjoy the genre of horror-themed board games. I think they're really a lot of fun. I like that kind of chilling atmosphere. This is a zombie game, and a lot of people say, well, aren't there too many zombie games out there? And to that I say, well, couldn't you say there are too many science fiction games out there? Aren't there too many World War II games out there? It's just another fun theme. And some are better than others. I played some crappy ones, I played some great ones. This is one of the great ones. This is Last Night on Earth from Flying Frog Productions. Last Night on Earth is a whole lot of fun. It kind of recreates what you would think a B-movie zombie film would be. And it's fun because one of the players, one or more of the players, plays the zombies. They're essentially... They can play as a team, depending on the numbers. It may just be one person, it may be a team of people, and the rest are playing as the human survivors. And they have objectives, usually to get out of the town, to accomplish some specific goal, and the zombies are trying to prevent that. And it's a fun mechanic. It's interesting. I really enjoy it. I like zombie games, some more than others, as I say, but I really do like Last Night on Earth from Flying Frog Productions. The Discriminating Gamers Top 100 Games. My number 28, this is a game that took a lot of flack because a lot of people... well, let me back up. It was very popular. It was a very popular game when it came out. It still is. But it took some flack from people who kind of expected it to be a lot more like another game, and it wasn't. And what I'm talking about here is Eclipse. Eclipse from, I believe it's Asmodee. Eclipse is a science fiction themed game where you're colonizing planets, you're researching tech, you are outfitting your spaceships to do battle. Very fun game, very fun mechanics. But a lot of people expected it to be more along the lines of like Twilight Imperium 3rd edition because there's text tiles that you're kind of placing out, and the science fiction theme, and many people just thought this game was going to be another TI3 or a lighter TI3, supposedly because it didn't have the playing time. This is, I think, 2 to 3 hours, where TI3 can be, 6, 7, 8, 9. And a lot of people were upset because it wasn't that game. It wasn't just a lighter TI3. It's a very, very different game. In fact, and it has been said before, Eclipse is a Euro game. It is a Euro game. It is an economic game. It's a game of economics and resource management set in this sci-fi theme. If you were to change the theme to, you know, Eskimo racing, I'm sure it wouldn't affect gameplay at all. It's not a highly thematic game in that regard. Now, it is thematic in the sense that, I mean, you know, you do have the spaceships you're outfitting, and there is some combat, so it is somewhat thematic. But really, it's about the economics. It's about the resource management. I really like Eclipse. I think it's a whole lot of fun. But if you go into it expecting kind of a space war game, you're going to be disappointed. It's not that at all. It is kind of a 4X game, but there's not the emphasis on conflict in this game that there is in some of these other games. There is some, but that's not the point. But I like it a lot. That is Eclipse, which is my number 28. My number 27 is, well, I'm just going to say it. It's Axis and Allies Europe. Now, this is the Axis and Allies Europe that again came out late 90s, I believe, which is just the basic Axis and Allies game, World War II, but it is set in the European theater. It's a whole lot of fun. If you haven't played Axis and Allies, you know, you need to. It's a great game, and it takes a lot of crap these days because there's a lot of other games out there, a lot of better games, frankly. But the Axis and Allies titles are still a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. You're trying to dominate Europe in this game, the Nazis versus the Allies, and it's well constructed, well put together. Several years ago, I actually went ahead and I made. And I haven't played this in a while, but actually, being a historian myself in the World War II, the European theater, Nazi Germany is actually my focus as a historian. I actually made some variants where you'd roll die and some actual historical events would occur that would affect gameplay, and I thought it was a lot of fun, and we used to play with that a lot when we played the game. So I enjoyed that quite a bit, but that is from Avalon Hill, Wizards of the Coast. That is Axis and Allies Europe, my number 27. My number 26 is one of the staples, one of the standards of modern gaming. It's a gateway game. It's one of those games that's very easy to get people into the hobby with because it's an easy game, but it's fun, it's intense, and even gamers who like a lot more complexity and a lot harder and different and more in-depth games still like this game, still play this game. I do. I mentioned one of its cousins, one of its offshoots a little bit earlier in the list, but this is Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride from Days of Wonder is just a phenomenal game. It remains a phenomenal game. And Days of Wonder just recently, of course, released the 10th Anniversary Edition. And the 10th Anniversary Edition is just it's the same game. I believe it's got the expansion in it, the 1910 expansion. But wow! What production values. This is a gamer's game that just absolutely delivers. The quality of the components, you've got the different little trains, and they all look brilliant. They come in these little tins. The map is just beautiful to look at. Cards, everything about the 10th Anniversary Edition just makes me want to stand up and cheer. And it's a great game to boot. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. So that is my number 26, Ticket to Ride from Days of Wonder. Discriminating gamers, top 100 games. My number 25 is a game that, again, I already mentioned this intellectual property earlier in the list, but I'm going to do it again. It's another Star Trek game. This is Star Trek Fleet Captains. Star Trek Fleet Captains is Tom Vasel, the great Tom Vasel. Oh, the great Tom Vasel called Star Trek Fleet Captains Star Trek in a Box. He's right. That's absolutely what this game is. It is Star Trek in a box. Essentially what you're doing is you have little miniatures of starships. The base game comes with a Federation and Klingon starship. And there's combat in it, but it's not a war game. It's a game where essentially you are going over these different sector tiles of space, and you flip them over, and it feels like you're like Star Trek, the emphasis is on exploration, and you're exploring it, but you're also launching kind of these diplomatic missions. You're trying to colonize planets. You're going on. The whole game is the whole point of the game is to score points. The first one to a certain amount of points wins. So. Like for the Klingons, they are much more aggressive, so they're going to do a lot more combat missions. They want to do that. And the Federation can do that, but they're doing a lot of scientific missions as well. They can try to study stars or beam away teams up and down. And you both get points for building star bases and developing worlds. You also you do win points for destroying other people's ships. So there's that combat element, but it's not a war game. Now, about a year or two ago, they came out with the Romulan expansion. So then there was the Romulan expansion. And then I thought they were going to let this thing die because of Star Trek Attack Wing and its popularity. This is from WizKids, which owns both these games. So I'm thinking they're just going to concentrate on Attack Wing. And then I was thrilled to see just recently the I can't think of it. The expansion of the race. It's from the founders from Deep Space Nine. The Dominion expansion. So the Dominion expansion, I believe, has just come out. I haven't played it yet, but it looks great. So that, I mean, you could theoretically play, with all these different races and different configurations. It allows you to experiment like that. So it looks just fantastic, this new expansion. And the game as a whole is great. It is Star Trek in a box. If you like Star Trek and you want to have those adventures, kind of like Firefly the game lets you have Firefly adventures, Star Trek Fleet Captains lets you have Star Trek adventures. So that is my number 25 Star Trek Fleet Captains from WizKids.
There was a discriminating gamer, and he had 100 favorite games.
My number 24 is another Axis and Allies game. This time, it is Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. This Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition came out a few years ago. It was a limited number that they produced, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on one of them. I think I paid a few years ago like 60 or 70 bucks for it. I really debated whether to buy it because that's a lot of money. And I'm glad I did because now I've seen them going for as much as $1,000 used. I've seen that. Now I don't know if you could get that now, maybe not, but definitely at least $300 or $400. This is one of those games that has definitely appreciated in value. And one of the reasons is it's a huge board. It's a huge game board. This is one of the global Axis and Allies. It's not just a specific part of the world. And to my knowledge, this is the only version of Axis and Allies that has Italy as its own country. So Italy can play as its own country. It's a very poor country economically. It can't do too much. And I find when I play the Axis, if I'm playing both Germany and Italy, I'll send all my German forces to fight in Russia, and then I'll kind of use Italian forces to garrison Western Europe. But it's a fun game. If you haven't played Axis and Allies, you need to. They're tremendously fun war games, particularly if you like World War II. Now let me just say this too. Axis and Allies, I am a historian. That's what I do for a living. I teach history. And Axis and Allies, I started playing when I was about 12 years old, the original Axis and Allies. And that's the game that got me really, really interested in history, and I really credit my becoming a historian with that game, to that game. So it's got a special place in my heart for that reason. But I love the Anniversary Edition. It's the best edition, in my opinion, global edition of Axis and Allies out there. So that is, again, from Wizards of the Coast, Avalon Hill, that company. So that is number 24, Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. Number 23 is a game that came out here just a couple of years ago, and it's one of these games that I was so excited to see this game come out. I thought it looked great, and I played it, and it was a lot of fun, but it never really captured the popular imagination in the way that I hoped it would. And so I was really disappointed that we haven't really seen a lot of development on this game. I think they are planning an expansion, I heard, which is cool of sorts. I'm not 100% sure on that. But it's a fun game. It is a war game. I'm sorry if you don't like war games. This is War Party. War Party is a fantasy war game where essentially from 4 different parts of the board you have people attacking, you have humans, you have dwarves, the undead, goblins, and you're trying to take over this board. You're trying to take over all the land. But as you're moving forward, you're building cities that can then be kind of supply bases where you can build more stuff out of, and you're trying to gain more points. But again, you can build heroes, you can go into dungeons, and I was a little concerned that maybe this game might be a little too close to Conquest of Nerath, which is a Dungeons & Dragons themed game. It's not. It's a completely different game. If you're looking at them A and B and thinking I should only get one or the other, well, if you can afford them, get both, because they're both great games. And War Party is a whole lot of fun. It's definitely its own game. That is from Lock and Load Publishing. My number 23, War Party. Number 22 is a game that, again, like War Party, it's a game that when it came out, I thought, wow, I could not believe everything this company put into the game. From the components, to the backstory, to the materials they wrote. This is just a game that blew me and my friends away. But it didn't capture the public imagination. And there's talk about some expansions that I have been hearing for years, about nearly 2 years now, and I don't know that we're any closer to seeing them, and I'm very scared because I want this game to do well. I want to keep seeing expansions. I don't know if it's going to happen. This is Leviathans. Leviathans is a game that takes place in an alternate history. It's an alternate history where the great powers of Europe prior to World War I were able to develop a new kind of element. A scientist develops a new kind of element that essentially allows airships to fly, battleships to fly. They're not airships, they're battleships. They're heavy metal battleships, and they can fly through the air. And so with this game, you're maneuvering these battleships around the board. You're rolling different colored die to try to hit and target different sections of the ships. And you've got these kind of ship cards where you can mark, what's been hit and what hasn't, and it's just a fun game. Again, it's a war game, it's a dice chucker, but it's a lot of fun. The theme alone is just fun. I love alternate history books and alternate history ideas, and so I really like what they've done with this game. A lot of fun, a whole lot of fun. That is my number 22, Leviathans, from Catalyst Game Labs. My number 21, So Shoot Me. It's another Axis and Allies title. I know, you're ready to walk off. Cody doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. He loves these war games. I do. I really like these war games. Axis and Allies Pacific. This is the companion to Axis and Allies Europe. And I got to tell you, as a historian, Europe is kind of my major field, so I tend to gravitate more toward European theater, World War II games. But I really love the Pacific game. I love the carriers. I love the island hopping. I love that point where America has to decide. It's a timing game. When is America really going to go onto the offensive? It's just a fun game. And again, I haven't played it for a while, but it's a whole lot of fun. It's a dice chucker. It's a war game, but man, it drags you in. That is my number 21, Axis and Allies Pacific, from Avalon Hill Wizards of the Coast. And that does it. That does it for my numbers 30 through 21. I'm really excited to see the games I'm going to bring you from this point on. Not as many war games. So my top 20, I think there might be a few, but there's not as many war games in my top 20. So for those of you who don't like war games, just stick around. I think you'll enjoy it. I'm really excited though, because as we approach my my number 1, I just get giddy. We actually have got a surprise coming up for you a little bit later as we approach my number 1. So stay tuned, keep watching these segments, and we'll have more for you in the coming weeks. So please, as always, I ask you, leave a comment here. Let me know what you think about my list. either on YouTube, on Facebook, on Board Game Geek, on our webpage, thediscriminatinggamer.com. Please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and you know what? We wear a hat so that the glare from the light doesn't.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going.
Start repeating again. And these games.
Oh, I was looking at something.
That's fine. Just repeat. And these games,
that
you play are the best. So he says, to be viewed on YouTube, are the top 100. Repeat that part.
Sorry.
Top 100 games. There's a guy who likes games, and the best that he's played are the ones that just say to be viewed on YouTube, and the games that he plays are the best that he says are the top 100 games.
I thought it was around.
It was supposed to be.